Dear brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord, Salvete omnis carissimi audientes, Laudetur Jesus Christus. Let Jesus be praised now and forever. It's a pity for having lost the Queen, Elizabeth II, the Queen of England. Our deepest sympathy to the Prime Minister, to the royal family, to all the people of England, and to all the countries under the Commonwealth of Nations. May the soul of the late Queen Elizabeth II rest in eternal peace. We would like to pay a tribute to the Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth II of Great Britain was the longest reigning monarch in British history. She celebrated 70 years on the throne in June 2022 with her Platinum Jubilee. It means sovereign head of state, especially a king, queen, or emperor. Do you know who Queen Elizabeth II is or was or has been? Kindly lend me your ear that you listen to who Queen Elizabeth II is. Who was Queen Elizabeth II? Queen Elizabeth II became queen on February 6, 1952.
I ask you all, whatever your religion, to pray for me on the day of my coronation.
And was crowned on June 2nd, 1953. She was the mother of Prince Charles, heir to the throne.
I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered, carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life. I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
As well as the grandmother of Princes William and Harry. As the longest-serving monarch in British history, she tried to make her reign more modern and sensitive to a changing public while maintaining traditions associated with the crown. Elizabeth died on September 8, 2022 at the age of 96. Her early life. Queen Elizabeth II was born Princess Elizabeth Alexandra Mary on April 21, 1926, in London at Prince Albert, Duke of York, later known as King George VI, and Elizabeth Bowes Lyon. At the time of her birth, most people did not realize Elizabeth would someday become the Queen of Great Britain. Elizabeth, nicknamed Lilibet, got to enjoy the first decade of her life with all the privileges of being a royal without the pressures of being the heir apparent. Elizabeth's father and mother divided their time between a home in London and Royal Lodge, the family's home of Windsor Great Park. Elizabeth and her young sister Margaret were educated at home by tutors. Academic courses included French, mathematics, and history, along with dancing, singing, and art lessons. With the outbreak of World War II in 1939, Elizabeth and her sister largely stayed out of London, having been relocated to Windsor Castle. From there, she made the first of her famous radio broadcasts in 1940 with this particular speech, reassuming the children of Britain who had been evacuated from their homes and families. The 14-year-old princess, showing her calm and firm personality, told them that in the end all will be well, for God will care for us and give us victory and peace. Elizabeth soon started taking on other public duties. Appointed colonel-in-chief of the Grenadier Guards by her father. Elizabeth made her first public appearance in inspecting the troops in 1942. She also began to accompany her parents on official visits within Britain. In 1945, Elizabeth joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service to help in the war effort. She trained side by side with other British women to be an expert driver and a mechanic. While her volunteer work only lasted a few months, it offers Elizabeth a glimpse into a different non-royal world. She had another vivid experience outside of the monarch when she and Margaret were allowed to mingle anonymously among the citizenry on Victory in Europe Day. Ascension to the crown. When Elizabeth's grandfather George IV died in 1936, his eldest son, Elizabeth's uncle, became King Edward VIII. Edward, however, was in love with American divorcee Wallis Simpson and had to choose between the crown and his heart. In the end, Edward chose Simpson and abdicated the crown. The event changed the course of her life, making her the heir presumptive to the British crown. Her father was crowned King George VI in 1937, taking on the name George to emphasize continuity with his father. Her mother became Queen Elizabeth on King George's death in 1952. She became Queen Mother and her daughter became Queen Elizabeth II. So this is where she gets Elizabeth II. And I repeat, her mother became Queen Elizabeth on King George's death in 1952. She became Queen Mother and her daughter became Queen Elizabeth II. The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. Elizabeth was crowned Queen. Let us look at the husband, Prince Philip. Elizabeth married her distant cousin, Philip Mountbatten, a surname adopted from his mother's side. On November 20th, 1947, at London's Westminster Abbey, Elizabeth first met Philip, son of Prince Andrew of Greece, and she was only 13. She was smitten with him from the start. The two kept in touch over the years and eventually fell in love. They made an unusual pair. Elizabeth was quiet and reserved, while Philip was boisterous and outspoken. Her father, King George VI, was hesitant about the match because while Mountbatten had ties to both the Danish and Greek royal families, he didn't possess great wealth and was considered by some to have a rough personality. At the time of their wedding, Great Britain was still recovering from the ravages of the World War II, and Elizabeth collected clothing coupons to get fabric for her gown. The family took on the name Windsor, a move pushed by her mother and Prime Minister Winston Churchill, which caused tension with her husband. In 1960, she reversed course, issuing orders that her descendants who did not carry royal titles or needed last names for legal purposes such as weddings would use the surname Mountbatten Windsor. Over the years, Philip inspired numerous public relations headaches with his off-the-cuff controversial comments and rumors of possible infidelities. Philip died on 9th April 2021 at the age of 99.
Pleasures and tribulations of bringing up children. I'm naturally somewhat biased, but I think our children have done rather well under very different and difficult and demanding circumstances. The trouble is that no two marriages are quite alike. However, I think that the main lesson that we've learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage. It may not be quite so important when things are going well, but it is absolutely vital when things get difficult. And you can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance and abundance.
All too often, I fear Prince Philip has had to listen to me speaking. Frequently, we have discussed my intended speech beforehand, and as you will imagine, his views have been expressed in a forthright manner. He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
The children of Elizabeth and Philip. Elizabeth and Philip wasted no time in producing an heir. Soon Charles was born in 1948, the year after their wedding, and daughter Anne arrived in 1950. Elizabeth had two more children, sons, Andrew and Edward, in 1960 and in 1964 respectively. In 1969, she officially made Charles her successor by granting him the title of Prince of Wales. Hundreds of millions of people turned in to see the ceremony on television. In 1981, 32-year-old Charles wed 19-year-old Diana Spencer, best known as Princess Diana, with the later rumors surfacing that he was pressured into the marriage by his family. The wedding drew enormous crowds in the streets of London, and millions watched the proceedings on television. Public opinion of the monarchy was especially strong at that time. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Charles and Diana gave birth to Elizabeth's grandsons, Prince William, who was created Duke of Cambridge upon his own marriage in 2011, second in line to the throne in 1982, and Prince Harry in 1984. Elizabeth had emerged as a devoted grandmother to William and Harry. Prince William has said that she offered invaluable support and guidance as he and Kate Middleton planned their 2011 wedding. On July 22, 2013, Elizabeth's grandson, William, and his wife, Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, welcomed their first child, George Alexander Louis, a successor to the throne, known officially as His Royal Highness, Prince George of Cambridge. On May 2, 2015, William and Kate welcomed their second child, Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, the Queen's fifth great-grandchild. On April 23, 2018, they followed with their third child, Prince Louis Arthur Charles. On May 6, 2019, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, and his wife, Meghan Markle, gave the Queen another great-grandchild with the birth of their son, Archie Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor. In addition to the Prince William and Prince Harry, the Queen's other grandchildren are Peter Phillip, Princess Beatrice of York, Princess Eugenie of York, Zara Tyndall, Lady Louis, Windsor, and James, Viscount Savant. She was also a great-grandmother to 10. The family tree. Elizabeth II's father and mother were known as Duke of Duchess of York. Her father, Prince Albert, Duke of York, was the second son of the Queen Mary and King George IV. Her mother was Lady Elizabeth Bowes Lyon. Elizabeth had ties with most of the monarchs in Europe. Her British ancestors include Queen Victoria, ruled 1837 to 1901, and King George III, ruled 1760 to 1820. Elizabeth's long and mainly peaceful reign was marked by vast changes in her people's lives, in her country's power, how Britain is viewed abroad, and how a monarchy is regarded and portrayed. As a constitutional monarch, Elizabeth did not weigh in on political matters, nor did she reveal her political views. However, she confers regularly with her prime minister. When Elizabeth became queen, post-war, Britain still had a substantial empire, dominions, and dependencies. However, during the 1950s and 1960s, Elizabeth II thus made visits to other countries as head of the Commonwealth and a representative of Britain, including a groundbreaking trip to Germany in 1965. She became the first British monarch to make a state visit there in more than 5 decades. During the 1970s and 1980s, Elizabeth continued to travel extensively. In 1973, she attended the Commonwealth Conference in Ottawa, Canada, and in 1976 traveled to the United States for the 2000th anniversary. In 1982, Elizabeth worried about her second son, Prince Andrew, who served as a helicopter pilot in the British Royal Navy during the Falkland War. Britain went to war with Argentina over the Falkland Island, a clash that lasted for several weeks. Well more than 250 British soldiers died in the conflict. Prince Andrew returned home safe and well, most of his mother's relief. In 2011, Elizabeth showed that the crown still had symbolic and diplomatic power when she became the first British monarch to visit the Republic of Uganda. During the 1970s and 1980s, Elizabeth continued to travel extensively. In 1973, she attended the Commonwealth Conference in Ottawa, Canada, and in 1976 traveled to the United States of the 200th anniversary celebration of America's independence from Britain. More than a week later, she was in Montreal, Canada, to open the Summer Olympics. In 1979, she traveled to Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Arab Emirates, and Oman, which gathered international attention and widespread respect. In 1982, Elizabeth worried about her second son, Prince Andrew, who served as a helicopter pilot in the British Royal Navy during the Falkland War. Britain went to war with Argentina over the Falkland Islands, a clash that lasted for several weeks. When more than 250 British soldiers died in the conflict, Henry returned home safe and well, much to his mother's relief. In 2011, Elizabeth showed that the crown still had symbolic and diplomatic when she became the first British monarch to visit the Republic of Ireland since 1911, when all the island was still part of the United Kingdom. Relationship with prime ministers. Elizabeth had 15 prime ministers placed into power during her reign, with the Queen and Prime Minister having a weekly confidential meeting. Elizabeth also met about a quarter of all the US presidents in history, most recently receiving Joe Biden for a state visit in June 2021. She enjoyed a father figure relationship with the iconic Winston Churchill and was later able to loosen up a bit and be somewhat informal with the Labour leaders Harold Wilson and James Callaghan. The contrast, she and Margaret Thatcher had a very formal, distant relationship with the Prime Minister. To be granting, Tony Blair saw certain concepts around the monarch as somewhat outdated, though he did appreciate Elizabeth making a public statement after the death of Diana. Later, Conservative leader David Cameron, who is Elizabeth's fifth cousin, enjoyed a warm rapport with the Queen. He apologized in 2014 for revealing a conversation that she was against the Scottish referendum to ask independence from Great Britain. Threats to Queen Elizabeth and royal family. Elizabeth worked tirelessly to protect the image of the monarch and to prepare for its future, but this saw the monarchy come into attack during her lifetime. The once revealed institution weathered a number of storms, including death threats against the royal family. In 1979, Elizabeth suffered a significant personal loss when Lord Mountbatten, her husband's uncle, died in terrorist bombing. Mountbatten and several members of his family were aboard his boat on August 27th off the west coast of Ireland, which the vessel exploded. He and three others, including one of his grandsons, were killed. The Irish Republican Army, which opposed British rule in Northern Ireland, took responsibility for it. In June 1981, Elizabeth herself had a dangerous encounter. She was riding in the Trooping the Colour, especially a military parade, to celebrate her official birthday when a man in the crowd pointed a gun at her. He feared. Elizabeth had an even closer call the following year when an intruder broke into Buckingham Palace and confronted her in her bedroom. When the press got wind of the fact, the Prince Phillip was nowhere to be seen during this incident. They speculated about the state of the royal marriage. The tabloid scandals. The marriage of Elizabeth's son, Charles, to Diana made headlines for years before the couple announced their separation in 1992, followed by their formal divorce in 1996. In the wake of Diana's death in Paris car crash in August 31, 1997, Elizabeth experienced intense media scrutiny. Her incredibly popular ex-daughter-in-law had been called the People's Princess. The Queen was at her Balmoral estate in Scotland with Charles, his and Diana's two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, at the time. 4 days, Elizabeth remained silent while the country mourned Diana's passing, and she was sharply criticized for her lack of a response. Stories circulated that the Queen did not want to give Diana a royal funeral, which only fueled publican sentiment against the monarch. Nearly a week after Diana's death, Elizabeth returned to London and issued a statement on the
Since last Sunday's dreadful news, we have seen throughout Britain and around the world an overwhelming expression of sadness at Diana's death. We have all been trying in our different ways to cope. It is not easy to express a sense of loss, since the initial shock is often succeeded by a mixture of other feelings: disbelief, incomprehension, anger, and concern for those who remain. We have all felt those emotions in these last few days. So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her two boys. This week at Balmoral, we have all been trying to help William and Harry come to terms with the devastating loss that they and the rest of us have suffered. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her but felt they knew her will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death. I share in your determination to cherish her memory. This is also an opportunity for me, on behalf of my family, and especially Prince Charles and William and Harry, to thank all of you who have brought flowers, sent messages, and paid your respects in so many ways to a remarkable person. These acts of kindness have been a huge source of help and comfort. Our thoughts are also with Diana's family and the families of those who died with her. I know that they too have drawn strength from what has happened since last weekend, as they seek to heal their sorrow and then to face the future without a loved one. I hope that tomorrow we can all, wherever we are, join in expressing our grief at Diana's loss and gratitude for her all too short life. It is a chance to show to the whole world the British nation united in grief and respect. May those who died rest in peace, and may we, each and every one of us, thank God for someone who made many, many people happy.
Elizabeth also initially objected the relationship between her son Charles and Camilla Bowles. Charles and Camilla had dated years before he met his family, but the relationship ended under family pressure, only to resume during Charles and Diana's marriage. Known to be a stickler for ceremony and tradition, she eventually showed signs of softening her stance over the years. When Charles and Camilla wed in 2005, Elizabeth and Prince Phillip did not attend the civil ceremony but attended the religious blessing and held a reception in their honor at Windsor Castle. In 1992, another Elizabeth's children, Prince Andrew, ended up in the tabloids after photos emerged of his wife Sarah Ferguson and another man engaged in romantic activity. The couple divorced soon after. In November 2017, the media reported the Queen had some £13 million invested in offshore accounts. The news came following the leak of the so-called Paradise Papers to the German newspaper, which shared the documents with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The Duchy of Lancaster, which holds assets for the Queen, confirms that some of its investments were overseas accounts, but insists they will all legitimate. Personal losses. After a start of the 21st century, Elizabeth experienced two great losses. She said goodbye to both her sister Margaret and her mother in 2002. The same year, she celebrated her Golden Jubilee, or 50th year on the throne. Margaret, known for being more of an adventurous soul than other royals and who was barred from marrying an early love, died in February after suffering a stroke. Only a few weeks later, Elizabeth, his mother, known as Queen Mother, died at Royal Lodge on March 30th at the age of 101. Diamond Jubilee. Elizabeth celebrated her Diamond Jubilee in 2012, marking 60 years as Queen. As part of the Jubilee festivals, a special BBC concert was held on June 4th, featuring the likes of Shirley Bassey, Paul MC Cuttin, Tom John, Stevie Wonder, and Kylie Minogue. Elizabeth was surrounded by family at this historical event, including her husband Philip, son Charles, and grandsons Harry and William. On September 9th, 2015, she surprised her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, as Britain's longest ruling monarch, who reigned for 63 years. Sapphire Jubilee. On February 6, 2017, the Queen celebrated 65 years on the throne, the only British monarch to ever celebrate her Sapphire Jubilee. The date also marks the anniversary of the death of her father. The Queen chose to spend the day quietly at Sandringham, her country estate north of London, where she attended a church service. In London, there were royal gun salutes at Green Park and at the Tower of London to mark the occasion. The Royal Mint also issued 8 new commemorative coins in honor of the Queen's Sapphire Jubilee. Platinum Jubilee. In 2022, the nation celebrated Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee year. She was the first British monarch to reach that milestone, which marks 70 years on the throne. Elizabeth died peacefully at her Balmoral estate on September 8, 2022. She was 96 years old. Hobbies. For much of her life, the Queen surrounded herself with dogs. She was especially known for her love of corgis, owning more than 30 descendants of the first corgi she received as a teenager until the death of the final one, Willow, in 2018. Elizabeth was also a horse enthusiast who bred thoroughbreds and attended racing events for many years. Not one for the spotlight, Elizabeth liked quiet pastimes. She enjoyed reading mysteries, working on crossword puzzle, and reportedly even watching wrestling on television. Strive for accuracy and fairness. If you see something that doesn't look like, contact us. That's all we can talk or say about Queen Elizabeth II.